The abortion debate has cut society down the middle as we have continued to pit the rights of the mother against those of the unborn. Nowhere else has this become more clear than in the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which has inflamed both sides of the abortion divide, as both seek to safeguard their own ethical concerns, the right to choose and the right to life, respectively. To view the abortion debate through a rights-based approach has become commonplace in the West. Specifically in America, 55% of people describe themselves as pro-choice and 39% as pro-life, with some 94% of people falling on one side or other. The abortion debate has been distilled down to the conflict between the individual's rights over their own bodily autonomy and the unborn's appeal to the right to life. As America has inched towards a pro-choice stance, both among the electorate and the legislature until recent months, a rallying cry of "my body, my choice" has ringed out across the vacuum of mainstream media, as those in support of Roe v. Wade argued that the prohibition against abortion is a violation of their liberty, and specifically of the rights they have over their own body. This view has been influenced, either explicitly or implicitly, by a landmark paper published in 1971 titled "A Defense of Abortion" by Judith Jarvis Thomson. In this paper, she invites the reader to imagine a woman who has been kidnapped in the middle of the night. As she wakes up, she finds herself in a hospital with tubes connecting her body to that of a world-famous violinist. The doctor walks in and says that without access to her bodily resources, the violinist would surely die, which raises the question that even though the violinist would surely die, does the doctor have a right to use the woman's bodily resources to sustain the life of another person? For Judith Jarvis Thomson, this reveals a key moral insight that one person's right to life does not automatically generate a corresponding duty on others to provide the person with the means to sustain his life. Even if all that was required to sustain the life of another was a lock of hair or a vial of blood, that would not generate a duty to sustain the life of another, even though it comes at little inconvenience to ourselves. One's decision to withhold their bodily resources in such a situation would not be unjust. Indeed, as Thomson writes, we should not conclude that the fetus has a right to use the woman's body. We should conclude that she is self-centered, callous, indecent, but not unjust if she refuses. The complaints are no less grave, they are just different. The ethical debate surrounding abortion has been crudely reduced to a conversation about rights. Indeed, abortion is not unjust, but as Thomson notes, one may still act in a manner that is self-centered and callous, and we shouldn't view these concerns as any less grave. One philosopher who wanted us to see abortion in a new, more serious light is Rosalind Hursthouse, who argued in Virtue Theory and Abortion that we should not be simply concerned about what the right action to take is, also about how the circumstances of a particular abortion reflects upon our character. To make this argument, Hursthouse draws on Aristotelian virtue ethics, which argues that a virtuous agent is one who acts virtuously, that is, one who has and exercises the virtues, and two, a virtue is a character trait a human being needs to flourish or live well. Therefore, rather than simply seeking to do the right thing when a moral dilemma presents itself, we should also cultivate a range of character traits through our daily habits that induce appropriate feelings in a given situation and that ultimately contribute to a fulfilling life. It is in this manner that Hursthouse wants to turn the abortion debate on its head. Hursthouse starts by emphasising that abortion is a serious matter simply because it concerns, in some sense, the cutting off of a new human life. To treat it as if it were of little importance reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of what is at stake. Accordingly, to think of abortion as nothing but the killing of something that does not matter, or as nothing but the exercise of some right, or as the incidental means to some desirable state of affairs, is to do something callous and light-minded, the sort of thing that no virtuous and wise person would do. It is to have the wrong attitudes, not only to fetuses, but more generally to human life and death, parenthood and family relationships. It would be like laughing off an expecting mother's miscarriage and saying it's just like a haircut anyway, or what's the big deal, it's just a clump of cell. For Hursthouse, abortion will nearly always involve the sacrifice of some important goods. That is because, whatever we think of the status of the fetus, as a living being or not, we are always sacrificing the intrinsic potential of the unborn to develop new capabilities and to provide a range of goods intrinsic to parenthood. Therefore, for a particular abortion to be justified, it must be done in pursuit of some real good or to avoid some real evil. In essence, even if we have certain legal rights, one can exercise these rights for good or evil. I can do something cruel or callous or selfish, light-minded, self-righteous, stupid, or inconsiderate, disloyal, dishonest, that is, act viciously, remarks Hursthouse. Hursthouse wants us to ask the question, in having an abortion in these circumstances, would I be acting virtuously or viciously, or neither? Curtailing life and the potential for life should always be seen as a serious issue if we want to cultivate the right behaviours and emotional responses. A pregnant woman who is destined to live a life of drudgery and labour, who upon reflection sees their pregnancy as nothing but 9 months of insufferable toil, cannot be accused of the view that they view abortion flippantly or insincerely. She need not be a hero and shoulder more responsibility than she can handle. Rather, what shows, as Hursthouse remarks, is that something is terribly amiss in the conditions of their life, which make it so hard to recognise pregnancy and childbearing as a good that they can be. However, the parent who forgoes parenthood in order to have a good time and repeatedly finds themselves in such situations or in pursuit of some false vision of freedom and self-realisation does not manifest the right attitude to abortion, nor does the person who waits for the perfect circumstances conducive to raising a child, as if they can somehow manipulate all of the external factors required to bring about such a dream. Not only are such people foolhardy, but according to Hursthouse, they run the risk of losing out on the goods of being a parent, namely of purpose, of an opportunity to become less self-centred and to cultivate one of the deepest and most enduring relationships that one will likely ever experience. This all ties into what Weber called the process of disenchantment, as enlightened societies attempted to explain the world from a purely rational and reductionistic perspective, eliminating religion and much of the spiritual truths concomitant to it. We are living through a similar disenchantment of prenatal life. We have rendered the unborn as a clump of cells, as no longer significant nor sacred, even when in our darkest moments we don't genuinely believe it to be true. A mother, having tragically lost her child through miscarriage, is not comforted by the disenchanted view of the unborn as a clump of cells. It is not the losing of a lock of hair, rather the mother has lost something sacred to her. Moreover, some 38 states in the US recognise the unborn as a legal victim in the case where a pregnant mother has been murdered. And this is because, according to the Unborn Victims of Violence Act 2004, the law defines the child in utero as a member of the species of Homo sapiens at any stage of development, who is carried in the womb. Would we be wrong to say that there was only one victim in such a homicide? Would the obituary read as, pregnant mother fatally and tragically shot, along with a clump of cells nestled in her womb? One might reply that, were it early enough in the pregnancy, then the unborn fetus would be no more than a clump of cells, divested of all the capabilities that make us human. It would not feel love nor joy, it could not see nor grasp, it could not play nor cry. This leads to a key question. How should we define a human in such circumstances? The philosopher Matthew Lew writes in Ethics and Abortion that we can come to define the human agent in one of two main ways. We can first come to define a human being according to a capabilities approach, where we draw a line and say that a human is that which has a range of capabilities. Indeed, in the UK and the US, 24 weeks into pregnancy is taken to be the point of viability, as the unborn child has developed all of its internal organs, has a functioning nervous system, and has a 60% chance of surviving independently outside of the womb in the case of a premature pregnancy. We may therefore come to define human as having the capacity for X capability, whether it be for rationality, decision making, emotional experience, moral intuition, and so on. But what do we make of those that don't have X capability? What do we make of infants who do not have the capacity for rational thinking, or for those that are comatose and unable to experience a range of emotions or sensory experiences? As soon as we try to define human life according to a range of characteristics, we run the risk of excluding those people who do not enjoy X capability. Rather, as Lewis suggests, we should see the fetus as a member of a natural kind, that is, of Homo sapiens. In other words, we should come to see the unborn at the point of conception as a member of our species, albeit a very immature member, because this avoids the trouble of coming to define the person as having X capability and excluding everyone who doesn't share that characteristic. And moreover, because all of its characteristics that we may or may not define as human are in potentiality by the very fact that it is already a member of our species. As David Oderberg notes, we can define potential in two ways. Firstly, extrinsic potential, which is exhibited by something like the ingredients of a cake that might reside in my kitchen. Although if treated in the right way, they might potentially become a cake. Left to themselves, they will not. Intrinsic potentiality, however, is the true sense of potentiality, because it is the unfolding or maturing of what lies in the nature of a thing. Ultimately, the unborn always carry a moral weight. We're always committing an evil, however small, because the unborn are always a member of our species, endowed with human potential, because they are human. We shouldn't therefore come to prohibit all abortions, as some pregnancies may lead to nothing but unbearable toil and suffering, but rather we should view all abortions much more seriously and gravely, for we are always committing an evil, however small. If you've liked this video, please consider contributing to my Patreon. Your kindness, generosity and support fuels the content on this channel. Thank you.